Right, it's good evening here from the studios of Radio FM 88 Australia. My name's Jeffrey Shaw. I'm broadcasting here from Brisbane, of course. Our co-host is right at the top of the totem pole from the Northern Hemisphere, and across the ditch in Netherlands is our guest today, who spent some time in Australia, would you believe? And she told me that she came and lived in Byron Bay, so I've given her the Byron Bay lookout from the lighthouse. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Priti. And it's a good morning to you in the UK.
Yes, good morning, Jeff. It's been delightful listening to your story behind the scenes. And I'm also delighted to welcome Eveline with us from the Netherlands. And she would like to explore the world of intuition. And my goodness, what a world it could possibly be. It's just phenomenal. We've been listening behind the scenes to some of the, shall we say, intuitive experiences that Jeff has had in the past. So, Eveline, please say hello and welcome to the Northern and the Southern Hemispheres simulcast.
Hello, everybody. It's really lovely to be here with you. I'm feeling very inspired, actually, by the sort of introduction that we've had. We're already in the space that I love to inhabit most, which is the most sort of expansive space I think there is. This ability as humans that we have to travel both within our bodies and without our bodies. And I think the relationship between those two has been something that has fascinated me since I was a very little girl. And I'm really curious to talk more with both Priti and Jeffrey here today about this subject. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So when you said that it's fascinated you since you were a little girl, what was it that sparked that in the first instance that has, shall we say, driven you to be where you are today?
Yeah. So I think as a little girl, I was always naturally a very intuitive child, and I actually believe most children are, right? I think it's something that we maybe learn to dismiss as we grow into adulthood. And for me, that took shape as a way of actually sensing what was happening for other people in the room consistently, but also in my very, very strong relationship to the animal kingdom. So I was forever finding ways to sort of escape on my own into the little wooded forest across the street from our house in Colombia in South America, in Bogota. Or, or spending time with horses. So I was one of the young horse girls. I spent a lot of time, but riding was one thing, but it was really about communing with the sort of, the horse or the horse kingdom that I really enjoyed. And I could always feel this element in me that couldn't fully understand what kind of experience I was having sort of in this material human realm. There were a lot of things about the human experience that I found just strange, right? Curious and strange. And I don't think that I had a very formed opinion about it, but very simple things like, why would people want to be exclusive? Why would they not connect from spirit to spirit with others? And, that might have expressed itself in that I was always connecting with the kids in a class that didn't have friends, or, so sort of through the act of empathy, but also because I felt like I just understood that there was this unified space that we all inhabit, that, you and I are not different from one another at a very, very sort of centralized aspect of form. So that's kind of what it was like for me as a child. And it's really interesting because this sort of happened unconsciously for me, but I went to see a wonderful, amazing palm reader in the Netherlands probably about half a year ago now. And she was reading my palms, and she said, at some point, you really decided to take a completely different form in life, right? You went from your intuitive, natural sort of pathway into a very intellectual pathway, guided by intellect, guided by, rationale. And I think that is true. And I saw the split in me, and I spent years, trying to make myself fit into the world of this sort of rational thought material realm, and it drove several years of academic study, and also developed sort of the curious scientist in me. And what I love about that journey is that now, probably most recently, I would say maybe in the last 5-6 years, I'm starting to become really, really consciously aware of the bridging function that's really powerful at this time in sort of human evolution, of bringing those two worlds together. So if I look across my career and the history of my career, I've always naturally sort of wanted to bridge, the Western and the Eastern philosophies, the sort of mystical with the scientific space, because I see it all as a different form, a different language that we use as humans to understand what is this, what is this experience? What are we? What is this that we are having here as an experience? What is this life? And I can see how actually that split in those pathways has enabled me, has equipped me with the ability to sort of bring these two worlds together in a really helpful way.
Wow. So, driven by questions, what is this? How is this happening? What's this? So there's a driving force that's curious. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So the split, how do you describe that? Is it a split of this intellectual, rational side and the much more innate knowing?
Yeah, so I think the strongly intuitive side, the part of me that so Jeffrey was telling some of his own stories at the start before we went live, and there is this space that we can, I think, inhabit that isn't sensorial, right? It's not within the senses. It's not driven or understood by the sensorial experience of life. It's like a different space. It's a dream space. It's an intuitive space. It's a spiritual space. There are so many words to describe what that experience is. And I started to see that as like, that was the space where I was always safe. So typically I'm somebody that loves to go to bed at 8 p.m. at night. And so that I have all this time still to travel into that space. And I did that as well as a child, but I started to create this separation around, well, that's sort of the thing I don't share with the world. That's not really what I talk about. There might be some judgment or criticism around that. So I'll just keep that to me. That's going to be like my little safe bubble or arena, and I'm going to try to mold myself and fit in with this, this human experience, this sensorial experience that I'm having here, and let whatever sort of outer drivers that seem to relate to success. And so how do you do this life well, right? What are the parameters that qualify as like, okay, I'm having a successful human experience. Let that drive my choices. And if I look at, so I have this pattern. I think we all circle around, what Rainer Maria Rilke, which is one of my favorite poets, would say. You're like circling around this metaphorical watchtower, maybe, as your life. And if I look through the lens of the metaphorical watchtower to my life, there are some inflection points where everything that I was building, that I was creating in my life, just disappeared. Like it just collapsed. So it's like relationships collapsed, home, career, and then it would be like a clean slate and I'd have to start again, which as a human experience, I can tell you that's quite a challenging experience to have. It's not, it's unsettling, right? It's unsettling to like lose everything. But every time that's happened, it's also because it's like the paradigm of what I was creating didn't really fit with what's true entirely for me, like what's most in integrity for who I am, or what this, I don't know, this journey of mine is going to express itself as. Does that make sense?
It does, yes, it does. So this idea of integrity, is it an expansive one, or is it something that's fixed? There's something that you know is you. How does that how do you experience that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful question. I don't know that it's so I want to say, like, simultaneously, yes, it's fixed, and no, it's not fixed, in the sense of I feel like I am forever still peeling back the layers of the onion, right? And simultaneously, there is like a knowing that I can't really is somewhat ineffable, I would say. I can't really say, like, this is the thing. It's just a knowing, a sense that when something fits and when something doesn't fit, right? It's a knowing that, okay, wait a second, like this isn't it. This is not the way to continue to move through this journey for me at this moment in time. And I have that very, very strongly. I don't know if both of you are, have come across human design and have any sort of interest in the concept of human design, but I think I don't know that much about it, but I have had my human design read, and I know that that's also a part of, how we all know differently in different ways what fits, and mine is like a very strong, like, immediate sense. And once it's there, I can't not look at it. Like, I can't not take the steps towards that integrity. I would say that's my integrity. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of if I look at my astrological chart, I have all my planets in the unconscious except one, which is Mars, in the conscious domain. And really, I do what I do, but I have no idea why I'm doing what I do. And at some point in the future, that reveals itself, generally sometime later. But there's that knowing, yep, let's do this, but I have no idea why.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Irrational.
Yeah, so it's almost like a force, isn't it? It's almost like a guiding force more than, it's just the integrity is like the guiding force. Like, but you're not sure why or how or what it is exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue to explore the world of intuition. What would you say to somebody who's very materialistic, and has never even heard of the word intuition? What are you talking about? Give us an idea of what you might reply to somebody like that.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so what I really love is to go through the understanding of, as a way to go in, right? To go through the understanding of how the brain works. So yeah. So if you think of us just from a biological perspective as this, like, earth suit, right? This material form.
Suit. Nice word.
Yeah. And you think of our brain and evolutionarily, like, who we have been and where we have come from, and you look at the animal kingdom, and you can see that the oldest part of us is the fear-driven brain, right? There was this example that Elizabeth Gilbert used. I went to a workshop of hers last weekend, and she said, you put a tadpole in a petri dish and you shine a shadow over it and it recoils in fear, right? There is the fear instinct is all across the animal kingdom. It's the oldest part of us. So there's the fear-driven part of us in the brain. And we also have, as humans, we have, these the five sort of main senses through which we experience life. So stay with that for a moment. So we have this fear-driven brain, and we actually know from neuroscience, and this is all quite new neuroscience that's coming out, but this beautiful neuroscientist called Lisa Feldman Barrett writes about this in a really accessible way. She says what people don't I often ask people what you think the brain is for, right? And we think, well, the brain's for thinking, or it's for imagining, or it's for creating, or it's for, and she's like, actually, the brain is for managing the body budget. So the brain's main function is to make sure that the energy in the body is managed as efficiently as possible. And one of the main ways that the brain does so is by being a predictive machine. So we don't actually, like when we look at that sensorial experience, we don't actually experience life as it comes in because there's too much information to process. We experience what the brain predicts will be relevant for us to experience based on our past experiences, right? And the rest we dismiss.
Yeah.
The rest we dismiss, right? So if we're thinking about this sensorial experience, we could say like we're kind of living in the past. We're experiencing the past and re-experiencing the past, right? However, interestingly enough, there is a part of our human experience that can expand. And I mention fear because I think we need to come into a place of state of calm, state of meditation, alpha brainwave level, whatever you want to call it, however you want to access that. And there we can actually let more impulses in, right? We can experience more of what's actually going on. And we know that, what we think is going on is not what's really going on. Yeah, it's like, I mean, if you look at any piece of information of quantum physicists, if you look at some of the theories of consciousness that are happening, one of my favorite scientists that's studying consciousness, Don Hoffman, he talks about, we are actually looking at the world through a virtual reality lens, right? We're actually looking at the interface of something. Yeah, what we're experiencing is the interface, our interface of what's going on. That's not what's really going on. So if you think about it in the form of a video game, if you're playing a video game and you're racing a car down the thing, you're not actually seeing the code, the computer code that's driving the interface of the car. You see the car, right? And so it's similar with our experience. We're not actually experiencing the code of what's going on. We're experiencing us driving the car. But when we are in a state of meditation or silence, or, Jeff, you might talk about it as like all our channels are open, the chakras are all aligned, or, the Kundalini energy is flowing. There's so many ways of saying that, but then we can access a lot more of what is going on. And I would say all humans have that innate ability of accessing more. And often people experience it as creativity. So if you don't resonate with the word intuition, then you might resonate with the word creativity. Can you make up a story? Can you imagine that now you are sitting in a beautiful cafe in the middle of Paris overlooking the Eiffel Tower? As soon as I say those words, your brain's already doing something, but your body is still here in this place. Like you are not actually... But you can travel to the Eiffel Tower. So the fact that you can do that means that you have an expansion that is possible for you. And that creativity is intuition, is mysticism. If you ask me, it's the entering of the wider space where we start to see that, there's way more happening in the field of consciousness, and we can become aware of that, right? And that's when also like the parameter of time-space collapses, because we know that time is a human construct. So time-space collapses in that space. So we can travel across time. We can travel across space. We can,
And go and visit other places and other creatures and learn from their experiences and bring that into our perspective when we ground ourselves back into the Netherlands or into Sussex, and then look at the world around us in a different light, in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, there's this beautiful, and I know Rob was on the show, and he mentioned this podcast, but there is this beautiful podcast that's quite popular at the moment in the US called the Telepathy Tapes, right?
Oh, yes,
Dickinson. And she has this episode where she brings on someone, and I can't remember what her name is, a South African lady who talks about, telepathic communication with animals. And it's wonderful, right? It is this very hilarious story about being flown into a beautiful resort somewhere in Thailand, and where the baboons are all, eating the fruit off it's just like there's this fruit out for the guests, and the baboons come in and they're constantly taking the fruit.
Baboons would.
Yeah. And the hotel staff is like, how do we get these baboons? We've built a fence, and they've already managed to get through the fence, and they're taking. And so she sits and she talks with the baboons, and she says, well, to the hotel staff, like, you might not like what you're about to hear, right? But the baboons are saying, the humans don't need all this extra food. Why do they even pull the fruit off a tree when they're not going to eat it right away? It's just going to go off. We're actually helping them. We're taking the food because it's all going to go to waste, which is not a way to deal with Mother Nature, right? It's just a lovely, lovely conversation. So I think, I think we're living at a time when probably for the first time in history, we have a level of awareness of what we are doing as human beings to the planet, to one another. Like, we've always been doing it, but I think we have a level of awareness around it now that asks for a different level of responsibility as well. And my sense is that we need to explore that space of intuition, of wider consciousness, if we're going to make different decisions, if we're going to take different action, if we're going to sit and rest in complexity, the complexity necessary to sort of see the bigger picture,
So a little bit more about information gathering, albeit through intuition and not knowing why you're seeing what you're seeing, and taking that and bring it into a new perspective. So and make better quality decisions.
That's right. So, for the listeners, maybe I'll bring that home in a very personal way, if that's helpful,
yes,
right?
Please.
So how do people actually do that for themselves in their own lives? So, and Jeff, you might know him, but the way that I was initially sort of introduced in this technology that I'm going to talk about now is through William Whitecloud's work, who he spent many, many years in Australia. And I think actually that's where he built up most of his career. And he currently lives in LA, and he's originally South African. But, he would talk about this idea of natural success. Natural success being our ability to create the lives that we most desire, and not desire from a material realm, like, okay, I'd like to have some fancy car and some beautiful wife and some $1 million bank account or whatever. No, actually deeply intuitively desire for the full expression of who we are. And the technology that he introduces is quite simple, but I think in this context, it has helped me understand, how do I use this larger awareness to guide my decision making in my life, right? And so what he teaches and what you learn to work with is this idea of setting up a tension between where you are right now, your current reality, which often does bring up the worries, the fears, the old sort of brain, activation. I feel like I'm in lack. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like the conditions aren't right for me to create the life I desire. It's the human experience. He would call it, I think, it's our current reality. He would just maybe say that's our egoic dysfunction, right? But it's our ego. Our ego is an inherent part of this earth suit, right? It is it's our orientation system. It says this is the interface that I'm in. That's the layer, right? So it's always there. We just need to see it, become aware that that's what's going on in our egoic space. And then bringing ourselves through like a meditative practice, letting go of the need to know, because the need to know activates that rational brain, letting go of the need to know, asking ourselves what else is true about, for example, I always love this example. I have this one for a relationship. So I was a single mom for a while, and have a challenged relationship with my ex-partner, who's the father of our child. And so I had this very strong notion, like, I don't ever need to be in a new relationship again. I'm done. I'm good. You know, I've had that experience. I'm good on my own. I'll just stay in my own, you know. And the intuitive coach I was working with, she said, why don't you just consider that maybe there is a relationship that you would like really desire possible for you? What would that feel like? You know? So I allowed myself to go into sort of that dream space of, oh, well, what would that feel like? And so I would set up the tension between, okay, here's my current reality where I think no more relationships, like no more challenge. And this space of like, oh, what, you know, I could feel like this generative, beautiful, sovereign space where I'm really exploring levels of me through the mirroring of someone else and doing that together, and just sort of being, you know, in a very generative, spiritual union that's also a material union, you know. And so you set up the tension, you visit both spaces, you allow that tension to be there, because it's actually the tension that generates the momentum to move towards something. So we need that. And then you ask from the space of the end result where you would like to be, you know, this intuitive experience that you have. What's the first step I took? What's the inspired action? So not how do I get there, because that doesn't help us actually. What's the inspired action I took from this possibility, right? And when I did that once in Portugal, what I got, and they say always go with whatever comes up for you. Like intuition speaks to you in symbols, in bodily experiences, in sounds that you hear, in voices, in images, like, but whatever comes up for you, trust it, you know, and go with it. And I got the words womb healing. And at that moment in time, these many years ago, I'd never heard of womb healing as like a form of practice or medicine or anything like that. So I was like, okay, I write down womb healing. And I think it was a week later that I was at a beach. I was living in Portugal at the time with my daughter, and she's off playing with one of the boys on the beach. And it turns out they go to the same school. So I end up talking to the mom, and she's a really lovely lady. And eventually I asked her, like, so what do you do? And she's like, I'm a womb healer. I said, okay, I need to work with you. Right. And, you know, Jeffrey, you were pointing to some of like those amazing moments where it's just like, you notice that synchronicity lands, you know, that we are guided by an intelligence that isn't ours to think up of how. We just lean into it and hear and listen and follow the steps. I think that's really important, like follow that thing that then comes our way.
Yeah, there's a lady.
Sounds a little bit like.
We had a lady 2 years ago who does womb healing down in Mullumbimby. Moranbah, beg your pardon. It was really fascinating subject, eh?
Yeah, it's amazing work. Really amazing. Like, it was transformative. I had no idea I could need it so much. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
You shifted consciousness there. You actually moved your hair. You got your hair and you pulled it back, and then you hung it to the other side.
Oh, wow. There you go. See?
Yeah, what were you doing subconsciously doing that?
Don't know.
So beautifully surmised with inspired action. I think that's just it's a whole way of being. If you're just doing things from inspired action without rational thought, and off you go. I don't know what I'm doing. And one of the audience typed in or sent in to Jeff about how much trust there is in operating in that way through life or navigating it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot of trust going on, isn't it? Is what Melanie wrote.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think that's right, you know, and it feels like a countercultural thing to do still. My experience is that what I see around me is, and my belief is that we'll move to a place where this is more accessible for more humans. And but yeah, there is something about trusting the non-linearity of it, trusting the, and it's more than trusting, is even like the ability and the willingness to relinquish control. You know, that fear-based predictive brain wants to control, it wants to know, because if it knows, it feels safe, and it can keep us safe, and it can keep the body budget effective and efficient, right? So it's like this invitation of, okay, actually let go of control. I'm not in control of this experience. Something much larger is guiding this experience. But as soon as you practice it in small bits in life, and you get that reinforcement through the appearance of, you know, synchronicities, or you just see the results, right? I mean, I ended up with an amazing partner in this relationship that I have envisioned. You start to understand, like, oh yeah, okay, this is actually working. And you start to see as well that when you stay in the egoic orientation and the ego-based decision making, you're just creating more of the same stuff, more of the same patterns that you are constantly creating in life. And that's also a choice. But I think the expansive way is much richer. And I think, and again, like, if I take it to a global scale, I would say it's very much necessary and very much needed, right? Because what we're doing in this space and what's driving some of our global political decision making and things, it's just, yeah, I don't think it's where we want to go.
I think the expression least said, soonest mended.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So Eveline, how do you nowadays go about the business of coaching people with this and exploring mental well-being? Because in your bio that you sent me some time back, you call yourself a mental well-being strategist, which sounds like everyone needs someone like you, a mental well-being strategist. Please tell me more.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Priti. So I think I introduce it in a myriad of ways. I think fundamentally it sits as the premise of what I believe to be true when I work with anyone or on any given project. Namely, I don't think any of us need to be fixed. You know, I think all of us have this very unique, very beautiful soul's journey that we're on. And so my work when I'm in the room with someone or with a group of people is, how do we get people to see more of themselves? And I'm going to steal something from this beautiful life coach called Martha Beck, because I didn't know she said this, but I thought, yes, that really resonates with what I fundamentally believe. But she just said it in a really powerful way. She says, our work is just to help people regulate their nervous systems enough so that they can know what they already know. And so I think about mental well-being and mental well-being strategy. It's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. If I look over the course of my career, like you both know this experience, when somebody who's really calm and really comfortable with who they are, and they're really aligned with what they're here to bring in the world, and they come into the room, and we were talking about Eckhart Tolle earlier, right? They come into the room and they sort of, there's just this presence. There's just this sort of, you know, field that they create just by being who they are, right? So, and I think we all have the potential to go there. So I think as a well-being strategist, I would say a lot of the work that I have brought to the world or have been inspired to bring to the world is around how do we design spaces, how do we design solutions that help people to go there, to go to a space of calm, a space of I feel safe in myself, I know how to regulate, I know how to listen to the inner voice, and then to start taking steps forward. And so that, that's sort of I think fundamentally at the baseline of all the work that I do. In one-on-one sessions, I may also proactively introduce people to an intuitive practice, right? So we'll go into a meditation and I'll ask them to step into the vision of something for themselves, and I will go into the vision of their, that's the wonderful thing about doing the intuitive work. Like, I could ask you both, okay, Jeff, Priti, I would like you to do an intuitive reading about me now, or about someone I know that you both don't know, and I could give you a name and you guys could go into a meditative state and you could source information about this person and it would be accurate.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you saying you're up for the experiment?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. Shall we do that?
Yeah. So first of all, do I have your permission to read you on all levels?
Yes, you do.
I do.
Do you want to specify it? So no, you I was pretty sure you were going to say no.
You're not going to bring the rational in here, dear.
No, exactly. But so
let's go, girl.
For an audience, this is great. For an audience, Priti, do you want to do it like around the technique? Is that helpful for the listening population? Because Jeffrey, I know Jeffrey will will be there, right?
Okay, I'll be the witness.
Well, no, and you could use the technology if you'd like to try. Then I'm going to ask you. Okay, ask you if you can read my genius. So if you imagine what is my genius, and then do whatever you need to do. If you want to close your eyes and take a moment and just settle into your body and let go of the need to know, which I think you do naturally as well, Priti, and then what's my genius, and then whatever comes up, you stay with that and you make up what that means to you. So if you get a symbol or an image, you make up what that means.
Okay, so first of all,
go, Jeff.
You're trying to conditions here of saying this is the step we want to go to, and I go from another perspective, which is when I ask your permission to read you on all levels, I'm now talking to your soul.
Yeah.
And your soul is telling me in a direction that you haven't been looking at, or just needs to be put to the forefront of your mind so you can see clearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a gentleman with me who I would consider to be your grandfather on your mother's side.
Okay.
Yeah. The guy's in a black and white suit.
Okay.
And he's got a clipboard. He's got all his little check boxes it's got to go through. And he signs off. It's sort of like in machinery. It's like armaments or tanks or something like that. Machinery, definitely machinery, but it's got to go through a checkbox. Yeah? And it's all about compartmentizing your brain and your mindset. Yeah. So then I'm given a swallow. No, not a swallow. It's a larger bird. I was going to say a seagull, but it's not. Jonathan Livingston's a seagull. But it's definitely a bird, and it's about soaring. Yeah. So it's about getting out of that mindset and to get the wind under your wings and allow it to soar to give you a different perspective. And that perspective I can see right across the seas. I can see the islands. Now I said, where am I going now with this? I'm seeing the UK. I'm seeing the White Cliffs of Dover, but I'm also drawn to the Pacific Islands. I don't know why the difference between the chalk of bloody Dover, but also the Pacific Islands. And the Pacific Islands is straight out of that bloody movie Moana.
I'm not surprised.
A really idyllic island, and of course, what's his name? He fishes out the bloody what's his name? Out of the mythology legends, isn't he? Dwayne Johnson played him.
Maui.
Maui. Yes. Anyway, and then it's a green emerald crystal, of course. Then when she awakens and then she becomes the goddess, and then she gives back Maui as bloody as
Hook.
Yeah. And then she says, "Right," and then she goes back and curls up and goes back into a deep sleep and becomes that island again. So it's almost like saying you can become the goddess, and it's about going back into nature, and you can go into that dream state. But the thing is that it's in the dream world that you'll get a depth of understanding that surpasses the academic world. And so when someone comes to you for a session, you throw away the academic book and then you listen. And as you listen, you actually move into the energy field and you actually read their whole energy signature. I'm actually taken back to my grandfather on my mother's side. And I originally, we've got a team of people coming in here, but he actually said to me in a dream state, he asked me what program I was on. And that was the biggest clue for me to be able to go in and get my own answers, and establish what program I was on. So once I found that, it was like I was operating on a software program. And then once I understood all the different components to that software, I thought, oh, okay, right, I understand where we're going. So for yourself, I can see the academic world of coming down the left brain, and then all of a sudden you've got to throw yourself in the deep end to learn how to go into the world of intuition. But in order to get that, you need to be able to encompass the people who come to see you, and you need to have the empathy. And the best way to have the empathy is to be able to walk those moccasins of feeling it, touching, and experience. And then you realize when you articulate to that particular individual, then they can sense your energy field, because your energy field will awaken them. It's like I can see the actual. It's like the peanut, the shell breaks next second. A legume comes out, and you provide all the nutrients and the nitrogen of the soil to be able to grow. Yeah, and I think you're doing quite well, mate.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. I really love this. So this is what I'm going to share with you guys as well. Jeff, you have more things coming in, I think. Do you?
Yeah, I'm standing in front of a blackboard now and doing the ABC. So it's something the ABC. It's all about learning, isn't it? You don't have to sing. You don't have to sing the alphabet, but it's.
I'm grateful for that.
It's the ABC, but I think your journey is going to shift quite dramatically now.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely going to shift.
So this morning, as I was out walking the dog and I was, doing the intuitive thing around our conversation today, I had this beautiful image of like us being catapulted out of this studio and into the sort of spiritual realm. And then it was like, oh, we're just having a conversation of souls. Like that's what's happening, So I love that there's a resonance as well with what you just shared. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay. And for me, instantly, I didn't even have to close my eyes. I had the image of the rainbows from just this bridge of colors that are all integrated but separate at the same time. That was immediately
That's beautiful.
if you like, the inspired image that I received when you asked me the question, what is your genius?
Wow. Thank you.
And that's how I saw it.
Beautiful. Yeah. So if you were to interpret that symbol, right? What's the story you would tell around that?
That when we were talking about the alignment of the chakras, so we tend to go vertically up and down, whereas this is not. This is side to side, so it's integrating both the vertical and the horizontal. And in a way, I've just realized I've made a symbol of the cross.
Wow. That's amazing. That's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So you could do the symbol 8 and
Yeah.
the 8 backwards and forwards, so that there's a point in the center that is just you.
Yeah.
Just you being you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. So I wanted to ask you some more now, because I've read through all your. Could you tell me a little bit more about your Myrtle Collective?
Yeah, the Myrtle Collective.
Designing and delivering corporate strategies. Here we go, back into the rational world, having had just such an exquisite time. Wizzy wooing all around, all different levels, and the expansiveness, and certainly the imagery that Jeff brought into the conversation is magical, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here I am back into the
material realm, the physical realm,
sensorial. Here we go.
Yeah.
So the Myrtle Collective. I mean, where did even the name come from? How did that come about? That's a great name.
Yes, and it is based on, and I'm not going to remember her full name, but Myrtle, and then her last name I can't remember, is one of the first female explorers that was known for some of the exploration that she did. It's actually a name that Sue Stockdale, who's on the site with us, came up with. And Sue herself was the first woman to ski to the magnetic North Pole. And her life is just a life of adventure. So there is this like very adventurous nature. And then both Pierre and I, who are in the Myrtle together as well, have had our own versions of that adventurous life. So, you know, I have this anecdote of my life that when I turned 30, I'm now 45, I think. When I turned 30,
it's just a number.
It's just a number. I'd lived in 30 different homes by the age of 30. I think I'm actually surpassed my age in terms of how many homes I've lived in, right? So, and I was born in Venezuela in South America, and then was raised in, you know, Venezuela, Colombia, and the Caribbean, and then have lived in Brazil and in Australia and in Portugal. And so there is this sense of movement and adventure across physical land, but also, of course, movement and adventure across inner landscapes. And Pierre is much the same. He lives in Argentina in a small town in Mendoza, and he's from South Africa. And so there was this adventurous thing, this adventurous spirit that I think unifies us and is part of the seed of the Myrtle Collective. And then we also have kind of unique lenses of how to work with people. So we all do something in the space of facilitation or coaching. And we kind of wanted to create this trifecta where we could almost really literally create that rainbow, Priti, of like, here are the different elements that a company, which I see companies also as like organisms of themselves, right? A company may want or need guidance towards their own intuitive vision, their own desired end result, whatever you want to call that. And they may not resonate with the language of, you know, let's go into the realm of consciousness and let's source it from there. I think there are some really brave, wonderful entrepreneurs doing that, because I think that's amazing. Like, I wish we would all go there, you know, naturally. But I think the truth is that if you sit with a whole room of people, that there might be some resistance to that. And so we wanted to bring together our own sort of skills and our own ability to communicate this through our own language and expertise, to offer groups, companies, communities, whatever it is, a journey where this becomes clear. There's like the things that get in the way, the worries, the egoic identity, but then collectively, the collective things that get in the way when we want to move towards a particular mission or vision. The sort of, how do we go into the sort of more quiet space so that we can source the more creative, intuitive ideas? And then an element of coaching that takes people into like, how do you create that collectively? So what are the kind of conversations that you want to have or need to have to move towards that vision? And then what's the first inspired action, right? So it's in some way very similar to the sort of the individual work, but it is also placed in, more corporate language. And and so Pierre brings this really wonderful ability to he's really creative, and he creates really sort of tangible, very visionary, sort of culturally challenging projects to life. So one of the things he's done, he's made a documentary about a river in Argentina, and talked about like, how does this river actually keep all of the areas around it alive? So how does it feed the human populations around it? And of course, there's the mining going on in the river, and so the river's being polluted. And so what's the influence of that on the entire ecosystem, and also the human ecosystem around this river? And then he was able to project it on a dam in his hometown in proportions that's like the largest projection of a video, I think, known to date. And then the whole community could go there and see and experience, like, this is what the effect of what we're doing to the river and how it's influencing us, right? So yeah, really cool. So
the river speaks.
The river speaks.
And the river speaks, and it's broadcast on a huge screen.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Pretty. That's tidy.
Yeah. So he has a really nice way of like bringing ideas to an actual artifact. Like, okay, so how do you make this tangible, right? So how do we help people make something that is an idea, that is a vision, tangible? And then Sue has this beautiful adventurous nature of like, how do we guide people to then, align with each other, and also talk about the things that come up with them personally. And yeah, so I think that's the Myrtle is just that, is this beautiful collective of the three of us who also just signal like, hey, something different is wanting to emerge in the world, is needed in the world, right? So like, circling back to some of the things I said earlier about how do we create something more generative, a more beautiful world, right? Which I think is part of dreaming the dream, is also about creating a more beautiful world for all of us. Yeah.
And I wanted to, if you like, go back to the vision that Jeff described to you of your grandfather and the clipboard, and with that information, has it created any other inspirations and inspired actions within you?
Yeah. I mean, yes. So there are actually two things that are going on for me around that. One is my grandfather served in the war for a while as a German informant. And so like the image of him with a clipboard, I wonder like how it might also be really accurate with his own sort of experience. And so the thing that was going on for me, and has been going on actually for a while, is I'm very curious about our own systemic dynamics. So what's my ancestry? And so it's not just me that chose to have a split in like my material life, but I'm also coming from a system. I'm integrally part of a system. There's maybe a systemic thing that wants to happen through me. And so that's what it made me curious about. Like, I typically connect quite strongly to my matriarchal line. So the understanding of the energy of my female lineage, but not so much the male lineage. And so that's what has left me sort of, I wonder what happens when I connect with that lineage, with that system, with that guidance. We did a sort of past future meditation exercise in the workshop I was in the weekend. And we had to go back and just land in a particular date. And let me just preface that I don't have anything with dates and history. Like, I always failed my history exams in school because I could never remember, like, when was World War I exactly, because dates don't really mean anything to me. But I was very specifically landed in 1814 in France with an ancestor, and it was a male ancestor. And there was just all this like hardship and war, and this male ancestor had lost his family. And the message, though, was about empathy. And so that resonated with what Jeff said, is like, of understanding really the energetic field that he was in, and to remember, to really remember fully, like, where somebody is energetically, and to approach them from there. And I think especially there's an invitation for me, how do I do that with the men in my life? So that's sort of what's staying with me at the moment. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it just the men in your life, or the masculine aspect of the women in your life too?
Yeah, exactly. It can be also the masculine aspect of life, just of the women, but also of myself and of life. Yeah.
I'm still intrigued with the clipboard, to be honest.
Yeah.
From that, it's Moana in the movie, where Maui's fishing up, what's her name, and then he buggers up, and so the goddess awakens and she gives him back his mana.
Yes, so the fact that it's like Kata, I think is her name, and Tafiti are the same being, right? Is it that scene? Like, so the water splits and Moana's bringing the heart back to Kata, which is like the goddess of like she's like trying to essentially kill Maui and like spew fireballs at him and whatever. But
it's a dark side, but it's the
dark side. Yeah.
It's the white one who is the higher.
Exactly.
When you start seeing the partnerships with the tarot,
and
you see the emperor and the empress, and then as you go up the scale, up the same. So Maui might have been able to fish up New Zealand or the islands, but she's the one who's the guiding principle who gave him the energy. So
right, exactly.
Coming back to the female essence of the goddess.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful.
I don't know about the Dover and the chalk, the White Cliffs of Dover. I never got to England. I'm looking at it, but I never got there. I'm looking at it, but I can see it across the water, but I haven't got there yet. So, I think that relates
from France.
No, I didn't see France. Might have been from the what's that place in Netherlands called? Hoek.
Hoek van Holland?
No, that's it. You got a ferry that goes from. Is it called?
It goes from Hoek van Holland, I think it's called.
Hoek of Holland. Yeah. It goes across to. Does it go to Harwich or go to Folkestone or?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I have taken the ferry over to Dover, but I've taken it from Calais, so the north of France. So I'm not sure where the one in the Netherlands goes. Yeah. I know that there is one that goes to Newcastle. Other than that, yeah.
North Shields. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that the work that you do these days is to create space for inspired action, and that in the creating of that space, it is about letting go of any preconceived ideas or any logic or any rationality, just get to that quiet space?
That's so hard, isn't it? That's a really hard question. It's a really hard thing to do.
It is really hard.
Mm.
And I would say yes, and right, yes, and the logic. So what I think happens quite a lot in the realm of well-being, if we go to look at certain like therapeutic modalities or healing modalities, is that we create this perception that only once this part of me is fixed, healed, dead, the ego has died, then I can be in the non-logic, in the intuitive, in the, you know, and I wonder if that is helping us. I don't think it's helping us. And I don't think those things are exclusive, mutually exclusive. So, which is what I really love about William's work, is that he says, no, that's okay. We need this egoic identity. And that doesn't mean that there's not a space for healing. And, you know, there's also a space for healing. Like, that's not dismissing the healing modalities. But it's saying we don't have to absolve this to get here. We actually have, in this bizarre and wondrous human experience, the two things that sit side by side. And maybe that's by design. Maybe those two modalities are by design because they set up a tension. There's a tension between the logical and the non-logical, right? They don't like each other. They are like, you know, like their magnetism is in opposite directions. But because of that, it creates something. It's like if you hold an elastic band and there's no tension, it does nothing. But you hold it and you let one side go and it moves, right? There's a trajectory. And so if you look at that just also from a principle of physics, if you look at nature, nature uses tension to create, right? And we are creative beings, so we could use that tension between the logic and the non-logic to create. It's just that we need the tools and the insights of how do we do that and what are we creating, because we are always creating, you know, whether we're unconscious beings creating or conscious beings creating, we are always creating. So
So when you came to manifest your current fella, you did that through the power of imagination rather than set up a whiteboard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
God, I've gone into one lady's bedroom, this is going back 20 years ago, and she had photographs of different fellas based on their anatomical body parts. So she wanted this nose, she wanted these ears, she wanted the colour of the eyes, you know, elongated face and then the tallness. It was really interesting. It was like going to the chop shop. But anyway.
That's fascinating. I didn't get that specific.
Yeah, it sounds a little Frankenstein to me.
Exactly.
Well, the power of imagination is pretty important. So
it is so important. Yeah.
Actually, I call it Imagineering. Yeah.
I like that.
Imagineering.
Yeah,
beautiful word.
Yeah, you imagine it and then you engineer it into manifestation.
Exactly.
Yeah, Imagineering.
That's beautiful. Yeah. The art of Imagineering. I like it.
Make a note.
I am. Amazing.
You can use that at the weekend.
Exactly.
So what are you currently working on these days?
Primarily, so I've been, you know, working with, so back to that sort of the watchtower that my life is circling around. I had another experience like that just a year ago where like everything collapsed. I lost my home. I lost the current circumstances around like my parenting. I lost my income source. So, you know, it's like back to ground zero. And so this last year for me has been an invitation, I think. It's like, okay, how do I really use that power of Imagineering to create and to build the steps that I want to source, that are aligned with what is true for me, really, you know, what I deeply desire. And, you know, one of the things is about having a stable foundation. And for someone who's lived in more than 45 homes in 45 years, that's like, wow, it's really different, right? So I would say that what I'm actually doing is using these technologies for myself to build the foundation, to, you know, the whole thing about, I believe that all of these choices that we make and all of these desires, they're constant. You re-choose them every day. You know, like I didn't manifest a partnership and then it's like, okay, it's done deal and I don't have to worry about that anymore. It's like, no, I re-choose that relationship and how I'm going to be in that relationship. Re-choose it every day.
Okay.
Right. So I re-choose all these things every day.
Re-choose.
Yeah. And then one of the things is professionally has been about, you know, how do I bring this more to the world? So how can I do this more in, you know, my coaching sessions and in clinical settings? And I'm currently working with a beautiful company called Open Up. They're based in the Netherlands. And my desire would be to do more with them. Right now I'm working as a psychologist who's just doing the one-on-one sessions with clients. But they have a beautiful mission, and that's really rooted in, you know, well-being strategy at the heart of it, creating a world that is infused with well-being. And so, yeah, I'm just sort of gently exploring avenues there. Yeah.
And
that's how I'd answer the question.
then going back to Jeff and his 178 desires, and he just listed them all out. Is that a reasonable strategy that could become worldwide, where you list all your desires?
Well, what I love about Jeff's story, you know, is less. So I have a bit of an aversion around do these 12 steps and you will be okay. You know,
Oh,
and I understand
yeah.
why we write those books. However, what we miss in the applying of those books when you sell them is like, we are not the person who wrote the books. I am not Jeff. You are not Jeff. Jeff has his own beautiful, unique, powerful journey here. His soul's journey and the way it manifests in this human form is unique. And so we may not ever write the 178, you know, desires list. But was really resonated and came through really strongly when we were listening to Jeff's story was he leaned in to what was coming his way. You know, what he heard, where he needed to be, what he needed to do to be in the right places that were drawing you in, Jeff. And I think that is amazing, right? And I think that's also the invitation I would extend to people is learn to listen to your own inner voice. And sometimes it might sound radical to other people, you know, like other people might be like, that's just bullshit, or like that doesn't make any sense, or I don't like what you said, it scares me. You know, just, but the power and the courage is in leaning in. You know, if you the voice said write 178 desires, the voice said, you know, be in this communion with these people. And I think that's it for me. Yeah. And there is no manual, you know, there's no manual that there's no pretty you know what I mean? There's no manual that would fit all of us in that way. And I think that scares us. I think we would prefer if there was like, if I just do the 12 steps by Gabby Bernstein or what Eckhart Tolle is doing, then I'll be okay. You know, it's like, I think part of being human is daring to lean on the uniqueness of your own journey and trusting that you can listen to a voice that is, you know, to your point, Jeff, like the loud, boisterous voice that appeared to you is like, we all have something like that. Yeah.
Hey, we've had enough authors on the show over the last 7 years. The majority of them.
Sorry if I offended anybody.
No.
Okay.
There's only one individual who stands out from the crowd, and she expressed to us, most authors will try and reach out to their muse in order to write the story, but most of them are all beginning, a middle, and an end. And this particular lady, Tracy Harding, she's called Seats of the Pants author. She has no idea what's going on. She's written 13 books, of which 4 of them are in trilogies. And each trilogy then rolls onto the next trilogy, to the point that her readers have said, "Oh, can you go back to the prequel and how it all started?" Now, in her journey of writing all these books, we get to the point that she sometimes had to go and see clairvoyant mediums, and they would then bring the knowledge through to her and say, "Listen, you just got to go and get the research for this and that will come to your 2nd chapter or your 5th chapter." And then by the time you get to the 13th, well, the 12th book, it all comes back. It's just an amazing ride, 640 pages in paperback. And then you realize and you're reading it, and you get these aha moments, and you think, I know that.
Oh,
and then you get to the point of when it all comes together, and you think, oh my God, there is a conclusion to the story of humanity. It's a fantastic read that she's put together based on Seats of the Pants. Yeah, Tracy Harding, her name is. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Seats of the Pants.
Tracy Harding.
Seats of the Pants.
Oh, no. That's a type of author who doesn't create a beginning and middle end story. She just starts writing, and the story starts to unfold. It comes out of her. She gets guided into the words and my stuff, and then she takes you on a journey. You start to meet the elementals, the wood spirits, and you get the earth spirits, and you get the air, the fire, and and it brings it all together. So when she puts this first book together, and she gets told how the manuscript's going to be handed out from one person at the hairdressing salon who's going to love it. She's going to give it to her mother. Her mother's going to then another lady who's an author and said, "Look, I'm going to give that to my literary agent." And then there's a function going to come up, and you're going to get an invite, and you're going to meet this guy who's a literary agent, who's then going to take you on board. So there's all these little steps. And then you get told about the etheric world, where she's got 6 different guides on the other side who bring all the manifestation. They go off when she goes to sleep at night, and they start linking up and networking, and then they start making everything happen. Amazing story. Amazing.
Wow.
And there's time travel involved in it. You start to meet Merlin, you meet Atlantis, you go into the future, you meet the Nephilim, you're going to meet Anu, the guardian of the Nephilim, who tells our heroine and the hero that their job is to bring the Nephilim back home. They've got to the point of no return. They've gone to the mental world. They haven't got an emotional body. It's time for them to move into the next cycle, and humanity is going to take over and bring the emotional essence back to this star system. Oh, and it's this, I'm giving too much away.
Amazing.
So you're talking, it's not the title is not, just to clarify, the title is not Seats of Your Pants, but it's the style in which people are flying by the seat of their pants, haven't really gotten any idea of where they're going, what they're doing, and it's one step after another. A bit Hansel and Gretel, following put the pebble down, and you just pick up the pebbles if you know the story of Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah, so the first book is called The Ancient Future. Yeah.
I love it.
Starts in Sydney. Her and her brother are Taekwondo exponents, and they win their championships. And then a situation occurs that sees her brother die from a brain aneurysm as a result of his title fight. Her father then, who's a British historian at the New South Wales University, says, "Go and see your auntie over there in Wiltshire," and of course, or Oxfordshire, I beg your pardon. And then she goes to Oxfordshire, and the car breaks down, and it's right outside the King's Stones. And anyway, so there's nothing she can do about the car till the morning. So she sees the King's Stones. She gets a blanket, she gets a rucksack, and gets a saxophone, and then she goes out and sits in the middle of the King's Stones. And then, oh my God, it's bloody the summer solstice. And then at 12 o'clock, there's a big etheric blue light that manifests around the stones, and then the big blue light, and now she's back to the 5th century. Really amazing. And then the story starts.
Wow.
And then we start learning about how she meets Merlin, and then they then try and time travel back to this world, and then they go back 25,000 years to Atlantis, and they come back to this world and into the future where the problems with the climate conditions, and they then start repairing the planet. And then
Wow.
I'm giving you heaps of bloody knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
That's great.
You're going to meet all the masters. You're going to meet them all. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about me.
It's okay.
No.
Sorry.
But we're talking about the ancient future, which is
Mm.
integration.
Get the first book, and then you'll see the other books that are in that series for that first trilogy. Then you go into the second trilogy, third trilogy. Yeah.
Amazing.
And you're going to get all those aha moments because you know that you've lived it.
Wow.
Aha.
So,
Ah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
we're
like-
back into that.
Yeah. Oils ain't oils. Yeah.
So we're back into that space of that quiet knowing again.
Mm,
Aha.
exactly.
Aha, knowing. To then create some more inspired actions. And I'm wondering what the voice has to say. Whether or not we have different voices that we listen to, that intuition, the voice that comes from deep within. And then there's the external voices that move us towards that space. Would you have anything to say about that, Eveline?
So what do you mean with the external voices that move us towards that space? So what do you
Well,
understand that as?
Okay, that's a good question too. I was listening to Jeff and his story, and in
Yeah.
listening to his story, I am now inspired to find myself in a nice, quiet space and hear what the voice, my inner voice, is going to say. But it's prompted by Jeff speaking and talking about the ancient future. So there's an external voice that didn't come from inside of me,
Yeah.
that says, "Oh, I wonder what would happen."
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really nice way to look at it, is that so if I circle back to William's work, he talks about the principles
Yep.
of alchemy, right? He talks about working with the principles of alchemy, where you take the manifest and you make it volatile, and then you take the fixed, you make it volatile, you have the volatile, and you make it fixed. And so if you look at that
Okay.
relationship and that interaction, I think there's something really interesting that we get to do as humans, where we are alchemists, right? Even in using language, we are fixing something ethereal, right? There's always, and there's like this slight distortion that happens as soon as you have an idea, and like you have a poem or a song or an image, and you put it on paper or you say it in words. It's like, yeah, not quite. Like it's almost that thing, but it's not quite that thing, right? So, and so I would say that the relationship that we have in experiencing ourselves as individuals, right, as like separate entities, allows us to be in this alchemical process, allows us to do this, like make the ethereal, make the volatile fix, and the fixed volatile. And I think we learn something when we do that. So I would say the other voices are there because they make fixed something that otherwise maybe wasn't even in your awareness, and now it's in your awareness, right? So Jeff sharing inspired you. Inspiration is like something has come into your awareness that you weren't aware of maybe before, or not in that same form, and then that allows you to do something, take action in a particular way. So then you can take your own fixed and make it volatile, and take your own volatile and make it fixed, right? So I think that's the function, I would say, of the external voices, is they give us an awareness of what's possible, and then it becomes possible for ourselves as well. And then we move our barrier. So I love that example of, I'm not going to get the numbers right here, but that the 100-meter run used to have a time max, or like used to be run in 8.7 seconds or something like that. It's not that, but whatever it is, it's probably 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes or something like that. Yeah. And then one person, right. And then one person broke that mark. And then all of a sudden, all the athletes are able to do it under the 4.5 minutes. It's like, why? Because all of a sudden this thing became possible that wasn't possible before. It wasn't in our awareness before that we could even potentially reach for something. And you see examples of that consistently in the human experience, you know, and I think that's the power of bringing out our voices, even and sharing our stories also when it feels like it's outside of the realm of what's possible. That's what's beautiful about fiction writing, you know, is that it makes all of these things possible because now they're an idea in the world. And now we can live into that idea. And without that, we don't even know that it's possible for us.
Yeah.
Just change the subject slightly. Because I used to go to singing lessons, and the pianist would go, you have to go up and down the scale, you know, go one octave to the next octave. And then you get a guy like Chris James, who comes from Buddy Lismore, who's traveled the world, and he teaches singing his way. And his way is just unbelievable. It's not singing up the scales. It's going there and getting a group of Neville nobodies on a Saturday morning, and then Sunday afternoon getting a 4-part choir of, you know, 34 people singing and harmonies. And all he does at the very first introduction, he just says, I could put the males over here, put the females there, and we'll just see if we get any sopranos and altos, we get anybody tenors and basses. So that's the first thing he does. And then he says, right, I want you to stand there and feel if you're on a horse. So you got to get into a position where you're feeling like a horse, you know, he's riding a horse. And then he gets you to go in front of everybody, yeah. And then he goes, Mom, Dad. So we've got to do Mom and Dad. And then he goes and pulls out a couple of songs like, you know, Michael rowed the boat ashore, you know, row your boat.
Oh, Lord.
And then he'll go and do Frank Sinatra. And I'll tell you what, he said at any given stage where you feel like the way he does it, he warms up your vocalization. So instead of being in scales, just going rigid, you're rigid in your actual throat chakra. He expands it right out here. And then as you're doing these warm-ups, then it comes back and you find you get yourself an extra octave in your voice range. You know? Awesome guy, Chris James. He used to come to England and teach people. So, so that's a game plan where, okay, classical trained, this is how you're supposed to be doing the singing. And then you pop singers who haven't got any training at all, and they get right into their vocal cords, and they actually end up, you know, having problems with their vocalization because they really haven't learned how to warm their voice up or do this stuff. Chris James takes you to a whole new level. So when you're talking about your little story about getting under the 4.5 minute mile, that's exactly right. You just need that one person to break the mold who's not caught up in the game of what would you call it? Sedentary thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love that example. Thank you.
It's brilliant. You do it so well. We can all do it.
That's right, because he said every child comes to the world, they've got singing tones, and it's like 8 years old, then the actual tone disappears to become clear cut. You know?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So, we're back to
so good.
What's next?
Well,
Pretty.
well, Good question. What's next? Eveline, is there any questions that you'd like us to ask you that we haven't asked already?
I don't think so. I
Anything?
think this has been like a really lovely, rich conversation. And thank you. Thank you for offering the space also to really openly explore this. I really love, sharing in this particular way on these topics. So yeah, I'm quite happy to round off here, if that makes sense for both of you.
Yeah, well, I must say I've laughed and I've enjoyed it. I think it's been flipping brilliant. Thank you very, very much, and for your openness, and intuitively, between us all, we've navigated the last hour and a half or so in the most delightful way. Thank you very, very much, both of you, really, because it's a major contribution from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Click off and we'll